going to notice is the different styles that different people of different sizes have. So Blake's one of the smaller kids on the team. He really has to use all the right techniques to roll the boat quickly and completely without wasting too much time on the rail trying to get the boat to roll over. And for him, that's difficult because he's little. And when you're little, you have less weight to roll the boat. So one thing, remember this, I'm going to bring it up later. Blake here is his back's not straight. He's already starting to prepare to go under the boom when the boom's on the way over. His back is not straight, it's bent over. He's already thinking about the flatten before the rolls really happen. Let's see if he continues to do this. Yeah, okay. So he did. Okay, and then he kind of has to sit on the rail for maybe a little bit too long, trying to force the boat to roll over after the sail fills with wind on the new side, where he was maybe a little bit behind on the timing on the roll, and that's a really big challenge for him because he's probably 60 pounds or 70 pounds. So we're going to compare that to Ryan's tack coming up, and we're going to learn something from it. The rest of the tack here, the flatten everything, he's got the hand on the centerboard, hand on the rail, everything else is pretty. So this is really the crucial moment that we're focusing on in this video. And the main point is your body posture halfway through the tack when you're head to wind and the boom is right in the middle of your boat. Okay? So boom right in the middle of your boat, middle of your tack. What does your body posture look like? Like we talked about in other videos, this is a really good screenshot of what it should look like, where you're in oppie stance with the majority of your weight outside the rail line. And the way you do this is by rocking your knees forward, rocking your shoulders forward, and having your entire torso facing directly straight forward in line with the boat. Then when you do that, when you duck under the boom, you shoot your weight back and you bring your chest down to your knees and you keep the same amount of your weight out over the rail line rolling the boat. Another thing to look at is the rudders. Okay, Ryan's rudder is probably 20 degrees off center line. It's really surprisingly straight. And look at how much rudder Blake's using. Also look at the heel angle of the boat, how much heel Ryan has at this point compared to how much heel Blake has at this point. Okay, it's the same point in the tack, but they're using different techniques. Okay, Ryan's also a little bit heavier, so he's cheating a little. But this technique is going to help people who are smaller roll the boats completely, and that's kind of the whole point. Blake, you should be able to roll the boat just as well as Ryan can if you use the right technique. One thing someone was saying is that it's not super important to roll completely. It's important to roll it as completely as you can with good timing. So if you can't roll quite to where water is scooping in the boat, if your rail doesn't quite touch the water and you're smaller, do the technique perfectly, roll the boat as hard as you can, and have perfect timing and go with that. That would be better than rolling the boat after the boom crosses and spending extra time trying to rock the boat over more and extending the length of your tack. Even though that would make your flatten better and you'd accelerate well out of the tack, you would slow down so much trying to make that happen that it's not worth it. If you notice, look at here, it's hard to see. You can probably see it better when the video is playing. Little scallops in the luff of his sails showing that his luff tension's too loose. He needs half a twist off on the bling, maybe drop the boom just a tiny bit lower and get a little more tension on the luff of your sail. If you're scared to increase your luff tension because your entry is not going to be smooth enough, typically that's a sign that you have to ease off on the corner ties. But that's off topic a little bit. Let's go into the tack. So these are light air tacks. We're starting from inside the boat on all of these. So the transition of what you do with your weight to whip the boat into the tack is really kind of interesting here. Ryan initiates this tack mostly with the rudder instead of with the weight, but then he does incorporate his weight once he gets going through the tack, and he whips the boat around and pivots it around his mast. Okay, so right there, when he stood up on his feet to go from inside the boat to use your weight to turn the boat. What you're going to see next, as soon as I hit play, is you're going to see he shifted from his knees pointing across the boat to in front, right? He shifted from sideways to facing forward in oppie stance. He's going to fire back on the rail, and the boat's going to whip right around the movement that he makes when he does that. Okay. Good tack right into the coach boat wake. We're going to pause right here. Okay, so let's compare this to Blake's tack. So at Blake's tack at this point, when the boom was coming over across, he shifted from his knees pointing across the boat to in front, right? He shifted from sideways to facing forward in opti stance. He's going to fire back on the rail, and the boat's going to whip right around the movement that he makes when he does that. Okay. Good tack right into the coach boat wake. We're going to pause right here. Okay, so let's compare this to Blake's tack. So at Blake's tack at this point, when the boom was coming over across the boat, he was already thinking about the flatten. He had his chest and his shoulders ducking under the boom ready to flatten, and then he got stuck rolling the boat after the tack, trying to get it to roll over as far as it was supposed to be. So Ryan at this point is still perfectly straight. Here's the rail line, right? Here's the outside of his boat. So probably 80-90% of the line, right? Here's the outside of his boat. So probably 80-90% of his mass is outside of the rail line in this picture. So Blake needs to incorporate more of this technique. Same with everyone else who's small and is having a difficult time rolling the boat. You do not want to roll the boat after the boom comes across. You want to have the timing on the roll right. So typically what you always see with smaller opti sailors is you see them forcing the roll too late in the second half of the tack, where if they have better technique and they're doing what Ryan's doing here, you have a much better chance of timing the roll properly. So here's the rail line right here. Most of his body weight is all outside of that, so he's still rolling the boat hard. You can let the boom, you can keep your back straight, keep an opti stance, stay in this posture until the boom hits you in the shoulder if you have to make that roll happen, okay? And then when the boom hits you in the shoulder, if that does happen, you bring your chest down to your knees, down forward. Instead of going inside the boat, you stay forward, which still keeps the same amount of your mass far out over rolling the boat. So let's give Colin a shot. Compare how Colin's tacking right now to the first half of what you're supposed to be doing through a tack. There's one shot at it. And then he goes into another tack here. Coming up next. The second half of Colin's tacks are perfect. He goes through the procedure exactly right. Hand on the centerboard, hand on the rail. He always comes out, or he's starting to always come out with a really nice, powerful flatten and come out with pretty decent boat speed. Okay, so perfect flatten, perfect second half to his tack there. Okay, but what we want to focus on is the first half. So he's in opti stance more or less right there, but he actually rotates the wrong way going into that. Okay, so we pause the frame here. He's maybe at a 45-degree angle to the center line of the boat. So he's not totally straightforward. He's not sideways. He's kind of halfway in opti stance. So going into this tack, what he should do is scoot back in the boat, rock his knees even farther forward, bring his right shoulder back, his left shoulder forward, and open up his chest and line it up with the boat. Okay, so both of his shoulders and his torso should be pointing straight forward going into this tack with his knees straight forward. And that will allow him to get to this moment where Ryan is here, okay? With Ryan's chest, his torso is facing straight forward, and he's got most of his weight outside the rail line here. So what Colin does actually is he shifts his weight 90 degrees the other direction towards the inside of the boat, 45 degrees from where he is here, and he brings his shoulders down inside the boat and brings his weight inside the boat instead of forward, okay? And he lands an opti stance coming out of it, which is good. That's what you should do. And then he switches back to sideways. I think he's going to do the same thing going into this one here. Okay, so let's pause the tack at the magic moment. Right there, okay? Halfway through the tack, head to wind. Instead of facing 90 degrees to the direction you would normally face and pointing his entire torso and his knees straight forward in the boat in opti stance, he's actually gone 90 degrees in the opposite direction, and he's facing directly sideways across the boat, okay? He's trying to roll with his butt instead of his entire upper body and his entire torso. So when he goes underneath the boom here, his weight moves inside of his boat inside the rail line instead of staying outside the rail line, helping to roll his boat. So let's see how his roll goes after this point. Okay, so he did get a pretty decent roll, but you'll notice it comes a little bit late in the maneuver, right? Happens a little late, and he didn't get a complete roll out of it. So I like this video of Ryan tacking because it's a pretty much perfect textbook example of the procedure through an opti-roll tack. As far as the procedure is concerned, he does everything in the right order, and he's a really good example. There's flat water inside the marina, so there's no extra distractions on what to do through the waves or anything like that. But let's watch how he does this. See if I can pause this video at the right time next time. Let me watch it through one more. So going into the tack, you'll notice his shoulders are in line with the rail, right? He's sideways in the boat, okay? He's facing across the boat. His knees are facing across the boat. What you're going to see as he starts to turn, he's going to shift his knees forward. He's going to bring this right shoulder forward, this left shoulder back. He's going to bring his torso back in the boat and rock his knees forward and face straight forward in that opti stance. That's going to help the boat turn around him, and it's going to give him the right stance to roll. So what Colin did in the last tack was he was facing a little bit farther forward than this at this point, and instead of rotating to face even farther forward, he shifted to face even more sideways. He shifted out of opti stance into the stance that we see actually most sailors who are new to Champ Fleet use when they're trying to roll tack, which gives you the late roll after the boom crosses over. So there's the weight shift. Okay, the play button's in the way, so it's hard to see at the moment, but you saw his knees go forward, his back comes back in the boat. In this example, he doesn't get facing completely, totally forward with his shoulders and his weight, but his knees and his lower torso is facing perfectly forward. As long as you get the amount of roll that you need, it's okay to face a little bit across the boat and duck under the boom early. But if you need more roll earlier in the tack, the way to do it is to face perfectly straight forward and keep your weight outside the rail line, as in our magic picture here. Okay, perfectly straightforward and outside the rail line. This is the way to get the most amount of roll out of the tack. Okay, and then he gets a hand on the centerboard here, hand on the rail, right into opti stance to flatten. And then you see he lands in opti stance with his knees forward and his torso pointing forward. And then he rotates back to sitting sideways in the boat in the straight line speed, go fast forward mode. Okay, so this is a really good textbook tack example. We'll probably do another video over analyzing this tack to the next degree, just to really illustrate the procedure, the boat handling procedure going through the roll tack. But starts out sideways in the boat, straight line speed, fast forward position, rotates knees forward, torso facing forward, weight back in the boat, which allows him to roll the boat more efficiently, harder, with less time, and it also pivots the boat around his weight, and it helps him to turn the boat with his weight so he uses less rudder. Okay, you're going to see him need to flatten a little bit harder than he actually does out of this tack, and the way you can tell that he needed to do that is if you watch the rudder, it cavitates just a little bit, it stalls just a little bit. Okay, where you see he was trying to head the boat down and he stalled it out right here. So it was really, really slight. If he had flattened a little bit more aggressively, the rudder would have gone perfectly smooth into the flatten with no cavitation. So timing your flatten and the amount of power and the time and speed that you flatten the boat at to sink in with the rudder to reduce all of the drag is really one of the main points. From his knees pointing across the boat to in front, right? He shifted from sideways to facing forward in opti stance. He's going to fire back on the rail, and the boat's going to whip right around the movement that he makes when he does that.